Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast. Today I'm going to do a proper philosophical subject, but it's one that applies to every field of human inquiry, and especially relates to, in my opinion, to any spiritual work we're doing or psychological work. And that is critical thinking. So this is where we are trying to apply. I've got a sort of little monitor set up on my camera, so hopefully I can just about see that I'm in shot, and so is the board. Critical thinking is where we are going to use our minds to assess the statements or claims that people are making. And it doesn't mean actually that we're going to be critical, because we might assess the statements of the person and find them very strong, and we are in agreement with them. Okay, so it doesn't mean being critical. Very important. We need to have more of an open mind when we're critical thinking, and I'll explain why. But maybe critical thinking isn't the best, description of this. But anyway, so I'm not going to talk about critical thinking in general. There's loads and loads of books out there. It's a big subject. It's taught as a subject in schools and universities. So, and basically you could say that philosophy is a kind of the study of thinking rationally and assessing arguments and claims and so on. So it's a massive subject. So all I'm going to concentrate on is a few of my favourite tips and tricks for critical thinkers. And they're, things I've noticed that perhaps are missing sometimes, and little things that can really help. So, the first and most important one really is to be aware of the possible biases of your partner in the debate, partners. And I use the word partner because I don't like the word opponent, because that might put us in a frame of mind of being against them. And really, I don't think that's a good frame of mind for critical thinking, let alone for obviously, getting on with people. And but I also don't think it's best for actually getting to truth. And that if we see ourselves as working together with other people, even if they see us as an opponent, but if we see that we're all working together towards the truth, that's what debate is, and we see them as partners in that, I think it's actually a lot better way to get towards truth. So we want to try and understand what the motivations of our partner is, and do they have a position? Some people don't particularly. They might be very open to your position, and that's a kind of debate that is very nice. It's more of a conversation really, where somebody's inquiring into your position, and they don't really have a clue what they think on the subject. And I suppose that's a bit like a student. And other times, of course, you'd have somebody who's got a well-established position. Now, your partner may not even know that you exist. So, say you're watching a video or reading a book being done by somebody else 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. You're not going to be debating with them directly, but presumably, but you're still in a kind of debate with them. So they may have a very well established position. Let's say, take one of my favourite partners. The word antagonist came to mind, to be fair. But let's say Richard Dawkins, I think his name is Richard, yeah. Or Sam Harris, you know, neo-atheists. I quite enjoy ripping them to shreds in my own mind. And so yeah, they may have a very well established position, and if you're aware of that, it can give you some clues as to what might be their biases, what might be their weaknesses, you know, what they might be missing in their own arguments, and so that can give you some big clues. Now that leads me to the next thing, which is charity. Yes, and this is very important, I think, and I'm very lucky to have had a tutor, a philosophy tutor, who one of the first things he taught me was this. He said you've got to have this charitable attitude to other people's arguments, particularly those who can't answer you back, like in books and so on. Yeah, you need to do the best for your partner with the arguments they've got forward. So don't look for some pathetic weakness in their argument. Oh, there's a misspelling here, so therefore that argument, I'll just dismiss it. You've just cheated yourself, really, at that point. You know, if you pick on some technicality or some little minor glitch in their argument that obviously they didn't mean that, or probably they didn't mean that, or even possibly they didn't mean that, you're just wasting your time and their time. So charity is about, in debate, is about seeing the best in their argument, even if they don't see it. Present it to them. Say, well, actually, you've missed this strength in what you're saying, or you've missed this whole argument out, this whole area of arguments. Yeah? Very important, because otherwise you're just going to end up talking about technicalities or side issues, or people's egos are going to get fired up. So much better to say, well, look, I think you can make this argument even stronger, but I think and you may still then say, I still think it's not strong enough, or I think there is a stronger argument, or something like that. And I found this technique to be so good, because sometimes when you're looking for the strength in the argument, you will find the weakness, the final crashing flaw that absolutely wipes it out. It's strange that is the way it works sometimes, that you're like, there's something wrong with this argument, how can that be fixed? And then you'll realise that it can't be fixed. It just can't be. It's unfixable. And of course at that point you've really disproven the argument. You've really cut it to shreds. Now that doesn't mean that your partner will see that, but hopefully other people who are less biased will see it. Sometime. One person. Who knows? But at least you know. So charity, very important. And now another thing that is a bit of a trick and is a bit of an art form in itself is, it's quite easy to criticise what is in the argument. You can look at what's there and you can look for weaknesses in it, and as I say, you can look for strengths, how you can improve it. But what about what's not there? This is quite difficult. So again, this is where charity can come in, because if you're looking for ways to strengthen their argument, or ways that they might strengthen it in response to your objections, or your points, or your questions, more neutrally, you might suddenly wonder, oh, hang on, why didn't they talk about this aspect of the situation. Why have they mentioned that? Surely they mentioned it. So you go through it all again. No, they didn't mention it. And then you think, oh wow. And then you try to think of what, yeah, that surely would have been a really strong argument for them. And then you go through that and suddenly you think, oh no, this is actually a strong argument against what they're saying. And that's why they didn't include it, or that's why they weren't even aware of it, because our own biases affect us so strongly. Confirmation bias, look into confirmation bias, look into groupthink, look into the experiments of Milgram, where people are affected by the people around them. It's very powerful, very, very powerful. And if you look into it, you'll be amazed that anyone remains somewhat subjective. I've studied statistics, for instance, and they were absolutely magical in some ways, in that if you go into doing a statistical analysis with a bias, it's quite difficult to get a truthful result. It's almost like your bias sort of leaks onto the paper and pushes the mathematics in a particular direction, and it's just so easy to miss a step here, or just eliminate this outlier here, just ignore some of this data here because it's obviously wrong, and poof, suddenly you've got absolute nonsense, compared to what you could have had, which would have been against your biases and prejudice probably. And of course this happens in all areas of life. At the end of the day, people do believe what they want to believe. People do believe what they want to believe. So you better want to believe the truth, whatever it is. That should be, this should be the top one actually. Make sure you really want the truth. Yeah? Even if it agrees with your partner or opponent. What if atheism is true? What if there is no God? Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to accept going into the argument, going into the debate, reading the book, watching the video, that they might be right? And if they are right, you want to know it. And you're ready to accept it. Because if you're not actually interested in truth above other things. Now, just because you would be persuaded by a particular argument or a particular book or video, if you're going to stay open-minded, which is a video I've done obviously, you shouldn't be completely persuaded, because you might have been persuaded by a very persuasive person, very charismatic, very intelligent, very well trained. I mean, I've spoken to some theologians who would be able to talk anyone, virtually, they'd be able to talk Richard Dawkins into religious belief, and they've been trained, and they're very, very good at it, and they're very intelligent and sincere people. I mean, equally, there's people with other views that are just as powerful and just as persuasive and charismatic. And it's not difficult for us sometimes to be persuaded, but it normally doesn't last. So this is why open-mindedness is quite important. So even if we are persuaded, we need to give ourselves some time, and then you'll find that I find that my subconscious is sort of churning away on all this stuff in the background, even though I feel quite persuaded. Churning away, and suddenly little questions start arising, like if I stay open to the fact that maybe they weren't right, you know, maybe I've been persuaded. But as the old saying goes, you persuade someone against their will, they are of the same opinion still. Yeah. You persuade someone against their will, they are of the same opinion still. This is a saying from sales, actually, because it was very important, if you're persuading someone to buy a product that they really want to, and that you haven't pushed them, or you know, that you know, they just wanted to get you out of the house or something, because they'll just cancel as soon as you're out of the house, you know. So you have to make sure they genuinely want it, because sometimes, you know, they would have done if you'd stayed there and not been convinced by them saying, oh yeah, we'll go for it, you know. If you'd stayed there and actually found out that there was an objection underneath that apparent acceptance, that there was a question, and as soon as you go out the door they're going to be talking to each other, and they're like, what about such and such? Oh yeah, I know. Oh bloody hell, we better cancel this. You know, but you could have dealt with it. But once you walk out that door and they cancel it, there's no way they're letting you back in there. Yeah. So you need to deal with it then, and you need to find out if they've still got some, you know, issue. Because a person persuaded against their will is of the same opinion still. And most of your partners, even if you think that you should have convinced them, will be of the same opinion still, because it's against their will to change it. And until they're open enough, or their will is changed, and their will is that they want to believe the truth, whatever it is, yeah, they won't be persuaded by truth even. So, last couple of tips. If we accept their premise or premises, if we accept, so we don't actually have to know whether what they're claiming is true to analyse their argument. So they may say, well, this experiment showed this experiment showed this, mathematics shows this, and we don't know anything about all this stuff. Yeah, it's way over our heads, all scientific. Yeah, some, you know, I don't know, you look at the paper, they link you to a paper, you look at the paper, it's like 10,000 words long, and half of that is bloody algebra. Yeah, you need a science degree to even assess that paper. Yeah. So what we can do in that case, where we can't really engage with the premise, we can just engage with the conclusion. Let's just assume that they're correct. The premise does show what they say it does. The paper does show that Arctic sea ice has reduced by 22% in thickness over the last 27 years. Yeah, or whatever it is. If that's true, does a conclusion follow from that? I.e., say the conclusion is sea ice is lower than it was before 1972, yeah, whatever the date is. Does that actually follow logically? Well, no, because sea ice isn't just present at the Arctic, is it? It's also present in the Antarctic. Oh wow, hang on, sea ice has been increasing at the Antarctic. Huh? So does it follow? Does their conclusion follow, even if their premise, even if we accept their premise as a working assumption? Which is very unlikely in the climate debate, but you don't even have to engage with the premise. You can just say, okay, I'll accept that, accept that, accept that, but hey, your conclusion doesn't follow from that anyway. Or other conclusions follow from it. Now, it's very often in the spiritual realm that people will put forward arguments, and for instance, a very good one is I feel it. I feel it's true. My intuition says it's true. Well, unfortunately that's not an answer. I call it a non-answer. Because if I ask you a question and you just say, because I feel it's true, I know it's true, you could use that answer for any question I could give you. Any question, couldn't you? Like if I said to you, is there an alien base on the dark side of the moon right now? And you say, no, I don't feel it's true. That's an answer, but it doesn't tell me anything about the truth of the matter. Or if you say, yeah, I feel it is true. It's not, it can be used to any question as an answer. Another good example is God just wills it that way. Yeah. So someone may say such and such is true because God wills it that way. Yeah. And you can say that about anything. You can say, you know, why is milk white? Because God wills it that way. Yeah. So it's a non-answer. You know, and scientists will give you a different answer. They'll say, well, you know, there's calcium in it and it's in combination with fat and that refracts light at this frequency and we detect it as white, you know. And there is actually a type of milk that's kind of reddy colour, blah blah blah, and that's because it's got a slightly different consistency or blah blah blah, yeah. That's an answer. It's maybe not a complete answer or a full answer, but at least it's something, you know. Whereas an answer that's applicable to every question is a non-answer. So, for instance, another good one is, because human beings are naughty, you know, from God's point of view. Or, you know, that we've misused free will, or we're bad, or, you know, we original sin, something like that. That explains this, that explains that explains this evil, that evil in the world. Unfortunately, it's a non-answer. It might be true, but it's still a non-answer because it can be used to answer any question, and therefore it doesn't differentiate itself at all. You might as well just shrug your shoulders as give a non-answer. And in fact, that's often what people really should do, is just say, well, I don't know. I really don't know. It's just beyond my understanding. I don't even have a theory. You know, but instead they offer a non-answer to appear that they do know when they don't. Okay, so that's something to watch out for. So, and the other thing is, you know, that can happen in many debates where the argument, the argument they're giving can lead to more than one conclusion. And even a number of conclusions, or as I've just pointed out, the argument they're giving could lead to any number or infinite number of conclusions. So watch out for that one. That's one to realise, because the conclusion does follow from the argument, but so does so many other conclusions. And bam, you've just destroyed that argument, basically. So there we go. Thanks for watching and happy thinking. Bye.